Hey everyone, I'm Lan, a 29-year-old marketing executive with a story that'll leave you speechless. It all started when I found myself staring at a positive pregnancy test, heart pounding with excitement. Jack and I had been trying for months, and now it was finally happening. That night, I surprised him with a little world's best dad muck. His face lit up with joy. "Are you serious? We're having a baby?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. I nodded, tears welling up as he scooped me into his arms, spinning me around. "We're going to be parents," he shouted. The next day at work, I could hardly contain my excitement. My best friend and coworker, Sophia, noticed right away. "Spill it, Elle. What's got you grinning like the Cheshire Cat?" she asked. I pulled her into the break room and whispered, "I'm pregnant." She squealed, hugging me tight. "Oh my God, I'm so happy for you." We chatted about nursery colors and baby names, and I felt on top of the world. Then came the first ultrasound. Jack and I held hands, watching the screen intently. The technician paused, then smiled. "Well, would you look at that? Congratulations, you're having twins." I was over the moon, but Jack's reaction was different. His smile seemed forced. "Two babies," he said weakly. "That's wow." On the drive home, he was unusually quiet. I tried to get him to talk. "Can you believe it, Jack?" "Twins," he nodded, distracted. "Yeah, it's something." That night, I overheard him on the phone. "Mom, I don't know what to do. Two babies, we can't afford that." I froze. "Can't afford it? We both have good jobs." What was he talking about? The next day, Jack's mother, Patricia, showed up unannounced. "I heard the news," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Two babies, that's quite a handful." I forced a smile. "We're excited," I replied, but Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure you're ready for this, dear? Children are such a responsibility." Before I could respond, Jack jumped in. "Mom, we've got this. Right, Lan?" I nodded, but a sense of unease settled in. Over the next few weeks, I noticed Jack taking more and more private calls with his mother. Every time I walked in, he'd quickly end the conversation. One night, I confronted him. "Jack, is everything okay? You seem distant." He forced a smile. "Of course, babe. Just processing the whole twins thing." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As time went on, Jack's behavior grew more erratic. He was constantly checking his phone, having hushed conversations with Patricia. I tried to involve him in baby preparations, but he was always too busy or too tired. One evening, while folding laundry, I heard him on the phone again. "Mom, I know, but how am I supposed to tell her? She's so excited about the twins." My heart started racing. "Tell me what. Maybe you could talk to her, convince her it's for the best," Jack continued. I leaned closer to the door, straining to hear. "I know it's a lot to ask, but if anyone can convince Lan to, get rid of one of them, it's you." The laundry basket slipped from my hands, crashing to the floor. Jack whirled around, his face going pale. "I'll call you back, Mom," he said, quickly hanging up. We stared at each other, the silence between us deafening. Finally, I found my voice. "Get rid of one of them." "Are you talking about our babies?" Jack stammered, trying to backpedal. "Lan, it's not what you think. We were just discussing options." But I wasn't listening anymore. My world was crumbling. The man I thought I knew, the father of my children, was plotting behind my back to get rid of one of our babies. As I stood there, tears streaming down my face, I realized this was just the beginning of a battle I never saw coming. But one thing was clear: I would fight tooth and nail for my babies, with or without Jack by my side. The shock of Jack's conversation with Patricia left me reeling. I spent the night tossing and turning, trying to make sense of it all. How could he even think about getting rid of one of our babies? The next morning, I call Sophia in tears. "He wants to abort one of the twins." I choke out. "What? Are you serious?" Sophia's voice is a mix of shock and anger. "That's messed up, Lan. What are you going to do?" I take a deep breath. I have to confront him. I can't pretend I didn't hear it. That evening, I wait for Jack to come home. When he walks in, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, hands clasped tightly. "We need to talk," I say, my voice shaking. Jack looks wary. "About what?" "I heard you on the phone with your mother," I say, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Talking about getting rid of one of our babies." His face goes pale, then quickly shifts to defensive. You must have misunderstood. I would never. Don't lie to me, Jack, I snap. I heard you clear as day. He tries to backpedal, to explain it away. But I'm not buying it. The argument escalates, our voices rising. It's just not practical, Lan. Jack finally shouts. 2 babies at once. We can't handle that. I'm stunned into silence. Can't handle it. Or he just doesn't want to. The next few weeks are tense. Jack spends more time on the phone with Patricia, their hushed conversations stopping abruptly whenever I enter the room. The stress starts to take its toll on my health. One night, I wake up with severe cramps. Jack rushes me to the hospital, panic in his eyes. Please, I whisper to the doctor, are my babies okay? Hours of tests later, the verdict comes in, stress-induced complications. The doctor orders bed rest. You need to avoid stress at all costs, she warns. But how can I when the source of my stress is right beside me? Jack's concern seems genuine, but it doesn't last. As days in the hospital turn into a week, his visits become shorter, less frequent. And in his place, Patricia. She's there daily, all fake concern and backhanded comments. Oh, Lan, dear, this must be so hard on Jack. 2 babies and a wife in the hospital. I don't know how he copes. I grit my teeth, forcing a smile. We're managing just fine, Patricia. But are we? Jack's absence speaks volumes. As I lay there, watching Patricia fuss around my room, rearranging things to her liking, a realization hits me like a ton of bricks. This isn't just about the twins. This is about control. Jack and Patricia's control over my life, my choices, my future. Reaching for my phone, I text Sophia. I need your help. It's worse than we thought. As I hit send, I catch Patricia watching me, her eyes narrowed. I meet her gaze, unflinching. Game on, Patricia. You have no idea who you're messing with. I'm out of the hospital, but the war has just begun. I decide to play along, to buy time and gather evidence. Jack, maybe you're right. Maybe we should consider our options. The relief on his face is sickening. Really? I'm so glad you're being reasonable, honey. Sophie is horrified when I tell her my plans. Are you sure about this, Lan? She asks, worry etched on her face. I nod grimly. It's the only way to expose them. We spend a weekend redecorating, strategically placing hidden cameras and mix throughout the house. It feels wrong, but I'm desperate. The recordings are eye-opening, Jack and Patricia plotting ways to manipulate me. Mom, I think she's coming around. Keep pressuring her about the financial strain, Jack says in one recording. Patricia's voice is cold. Don't worry, dear. I've dealt with stubborn girls before. Remember Rachel? Rachel? Jack's ex. I dig deeper, reaching out to old friends. The story that unfolds is chilling. Rachel, driven away by Patricia's interference, just like the girlfriend before her. But the real bombshell drops when I stumble upon Jack's secret email, hidden bank accounts, massive debts, all tied to Patricia's investment advice. I'm reeling. My colleague Mark notices my distraction. Lan, is everything okay? You seem off. I break down, telling him everything. Mark's face darkens. That's serious stuff, Lan. You need to protect yourself and those babies. I know a great lawyer. Meanwhile, Patricia ramps up her isolation tactics. She's always around, intercepting calls, accidentally deleting messages. Oh, Sophia called. Must have slipped my mind to tell you, dear. I played dumb, but inside I'm seething. One night, I overhear Jack and Patricia discussing their final push. We'll take her to that clinic next week, Jack says. Once it's done, things can go back to normal. Normal? There's no going back from this. That night, I make my decision. I can't stay. I won't let them hurt my babies. I start squirreling away cash, gathering important documents. Sophia helps me find a safe place to stay. Are you sure about this, Lan? She asks, worry deepening in her eyes. I place a hand on my belly. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As I pack a small bag, hiding it in the back of my closet, I feel a mix of fear and determination. This isn't how I imagine my life going, but for my babies, for myself, I'll do whatever it takes. The next morning, I pace on a smile as Jack kisses me goodbye. Have a great day, honey, he says, oblivious. Little does he know, it's the last time he'll see me as his wife. The war might have been silent, but the final battle, that's going to be explosive. The stage is set. I've invited everyone, friends, family, even some of Jack's coworkers, to a reconciliation dinner. Jack thinks it's to announce we're keeping both twins. He has no idea what's coming. As guests arrive, I'm a bundle of nerves. Sophia squeezes my hand. "You've got this, Lan." Once everyone's seated, I stand up. "Before we eat, there's something you all need to see." I press play on the projector. The room falls silent as Jack and Patricia's true colors are revealed. Recordings of their manipulative conversations, financial documents showing Jack's deceit. Gasps and murmurs fill the room. Jack jumps up, face red. "This is a misunderstanding," he shouts. But I'm not done. I play the final recording. Jack and Patricia discussing the clinic appointment. Patricia's shrill voice cuts through the chaos. "You ungrateful little." Jack's father, Tom, who I'd never met before tonight, stands up. "That's enough, Patricia. I've heard all I need to hear." Jack tries to regain control. "Lan, baby, let's talk about this." I hold up my hand. "There's nothing to talk about, Jack. I'm leaving you. I'm keeping my babies and you'll be hearing from my lawyer." The room erupts. Patricia's having a full meltdown, screaming about ungrateful children and family loyalty. Jack alternates between begging me to reconsider and threatening legal action. Amidst the chaos, Tom approaches me. "Lan, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If you need anything, please let me know." His kindness almost breaks me. But I stand firm as security, hired just in case, escorts Jack and Patricia out. A weight lifts off my shoulders. 1 year later, I'm hanging streamers for the twins' first birthday. Sophia's helping, bouncing little Zoe on her hip while I finish icing the cake. "Can you believe it's been a year?" she asks. I shake my head, smiling as Ethan crawls across the floor. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, other times like a lifetime ago. The doorbell rings. It's Tom, arms full of presents. Hope I'm not too early. As guests arrive, true friends and supportive family, I can't help but marvel at how much has changed. I'm thriving at work, even got a promotion. The twins are healthy and happy. Later, as everyone's enjoying cake, I make an announcement. I'm starting a support group for women leaving toxic relationships. The room erupts in cheers and support. Sophia hugs me tight. "I'm so proud of you, Lan. You've come so far." Tom raises his glass. "To new beginnings and to the strongest woman I know." As I look around at my chosen family, at my beautiful twins, I feel a sense of peace. It wasn't easy, but we made it. And now it's time to help others do the same. As the party winds down, I tuck the twins into bed, looking at their peaceful faces. I whisper, "We did it, little ones. We're safe now." Back in the living room, Sophia and Tom are helping clean up. "You know," Tom says, "I always knew Jack had issues, but I never imagined. I'm just glad you got out when you did." I nod, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. Me too, it wasn't easy, but it was worth it. The story's over, but here's a question to ponder. Was Lan justified in secretly recording Jack and Patricia to gather evidence, or did she cross an ethical line? If your spouse was plotting behind your back to harm your unborn children, how far would you go to protect them? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective could help others facing similar family dilemmas. If this tale of betrayal and empowerment kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button and subscribe. Hi, I'm Sally, a high school teacher with a deep passion for guiding young minds. Life as a teacher is challenging but fulfilling. My days are spent juggling lesson plans, student queries, and the never-ending stack of papers to grade. When I'm not at school, I'm at home with my husband, Alex, making the most of our time together. We've been married for 3 years, and while married life has its ups and downs, one recurring challenge we face is dealing with his mother, Linda. From the moment Alex introduced me as his girlfriend, Linda has been a tough nut to crack. Her cold glances and tight-lipped smiles were my first hints, and over the years, her disapproval has only grown. It has morphed into subtle digs and backhanded compliments, especially during family gatherings where we're often together longer than I'd like. Today was one of those days, family dinner at Linda's, an event she insists on hosting once a month. The moment Alex and I stepped through her front door, the air was heavy with expectation. "Ah, Sally, that dress is interesting," Linda greeted me. The living room buzzed with the chatter of Alex's relatives, the atmosphere teetering between warm and cautiously tense, much like the relationship between Linda and me. As dinner approached, everyone settled around the large dining table, the clinking of cutlery punctuating the hum of conversation. When the dinner plates were placed on the polished wood, I felt every gaze in the room drift toward me. Linda set a distinct plate in front of me, a piece of fish with an unsettling smell. Beside me, Alex received a steaming portion of chicken, a stark contrast to mine. Hesitantly, I leaned closer to the fish, the odor growing stronger. Linda, is there any chance I could switch to the chicken? This fish smells a bit off to me. Sally, I made that fish especially for you, knowing you prefer lighter meals. It's perfectly fresh, Linda replied, her tone sharp. Trying to keep the situation light, I chuckled nervously. I really appreciate the thought, Linda, but I think it might have turned. Maybe there's some chicken left. Alex, sensing the tension, finally spoke up. Mom, maybe Sally can just have some of my chicken. Linda shook her head, dismissing Alex with a wave of her hand. No, she needs to eat what's been served to her. Sally, you're being incredibly rude and ungrateful. Just eat the fish. Murmurs filled the room as relatives exchanged glances. Uncle Joe, seated across from me, tried to mediate with a forced smile. Sally, maybe it's not as bad as you think. Just a small bite, huh? Feeling the weight of the room's expectations, I picked up my fork and sliced a small piece of the fish. The texture felt wrong, and my heart raced as I brought it to my lips. See everyone, she's doing the right thing, Linda commented, a sharp edge to her voice. I placed the fish in my mouth, and the taste was as bad as the smell. My face contorted involuntarily, and I struggled to swallow. Under the table, Alex reached out, placing his hand over mine, his concern palpable. Immediately, I felt my stomach churn. Excusing myself, I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm sorry, I need to step out for a moment. In the bathroom, the small bite I had taken rebelled, and I was violently sick. The sounds of my distress echoed faintly, a stark contrast to the muffled conversations outside. When I returned, pale and shaken, the room split into two. Aunt Mary, a kind soul, looked at me with sympathy. Are you okay, dear? You look pale. But Linda's voice cut through any murmur of concern. Dramatic as always, Sally always has to make a scene. Alex stood then, his face set in a hard line. Enough, Mom. We're leaving. The drive home was silent at first, but it was clear things had to change. This wasn't just about a dinner. It was about respect. And tonight had shown us exactly where we stood. The tension was thick as Alex gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. I sat beside him, my body still recovering from the ordeal, feeling every bump in the road more acutely than usual. Finally, I couldn't bear the quiet any longer. Alex, we need to talk about what happened back there. Alex kept his eyes on the road, his voice low. I know, Sally. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I don't understand how your mom could think it was okay to do that to someone, let alone to me and in front of everyone. My voice cracked a bit, the hurt evident. Alex sighed deeply. She's always been controlling Sally. I thought she'd back down tonight if you just tried a bit of the fish. I didn't expect her to push it that far. That's just it, Alex. It's not just about the fish, it's about respecting me. Us. Every time we let it slide, it gets worse. Where does it end? He was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're right. I've been too passive. It's hard for me, you know. She's my mom, but you're my wife. I should have supported you right from the start. The rest of the drive passed with us brainstorming how to handle the situation moving forward. As we parked in our driveway, Alex finally broke the contemplative silence. I'm going to call her tomorrow, Sally. It's time I set some boundaries with her. This can't go on, not if we want to have peace in our lives. I reached over, squeezing his hand. Thank you, Alex. It means a lot to hear you say that. The next day, I watched as Alex paced back and forth in our living room, phone in hand. He dialed his mother, and though I could only hear his side of the conversation, his tone was firm and resolute. Mom, we need to talk about last night. No, it's not okay. You can't treat Sally like that. Yes, she's my wife, and that should be enough for you to respect her. No, Mom, listen. We're not going to come over if things don't change. When he hung up, Alex looked drained but determined. She wasn't happy, but I think she got the message. We'll see how it goes. That conversation marked a turning point for us. Alex's commitment to standing up to his mother wasn't just about defending me, it was about respecting our partnership. It felt like a new beginning, one where mutual respect and support were non-negotiable. 2 weeks passed since the dinner incident, and we decided it was time to confront Linda directly. Alex and I agreed it was best to do it at her home, where she might feel more at ease, but also understand that we were serious. As we walked up to her doorstep, Alex squeezed my hand, a silent promise of solidarity. Linda greeted us with a cautious smile, perhaps sensing the seriousness in our approach. We sat down in her meticulously kept living room, the air tense as Alex began. "Mom, we need to talk about what's been happening. The way you treated Sally at dinner the other week wasn't right." Linda's eyebrows rose and her tone turned defensive. "I treated Sally just fine. She was the one making a scene over a little fish." I took a deep breath, ready to assert myself. "Linda, it wasn't just about the fish. It's about how you've been treating me since Alex and I got married. I felt disrespected and unwelcome." Linda scoffed, shaking her head. "This is just you being sensitive. I've always been straightforward. If you took offense, that's not my problem." Alex's voice grew firmer, a stark contrast to his usual calm demeanor. "It is your problem when it affects my wife and our marriage. You need to understand, Mom, if this continues, we'll have to limit our visits." The conversation paused as Linda processed this. "You're threatening me in my own house now?" "No, Mom, it's not a threat. It's us trying to make sure our family can be together without constant tension. We want you in our lives, but not at the cost of our peace." Just then, Aunt Marie, who had been quietly listening from the kitchen, stepped in. "Linda, I've noticed how you treat Sally. Maybe it's time to reflect on that. They're right to set boundaries." Linda looked taken aback, her gaze flickering between me, Alex, and her sister. "Well, I just don't see it." Alex continued, "We've decided that future family gatherings will be at neutral places where everyone feels comfortable. We think it's best for everyone." Linda sat back, her features tightening as she absorbed this new reality. After a long moment, she nodded slowly. "If that's what you need." As we left, Aunt Marie followed us out, whispering, "You did the right thing." Things needed to be said. Driving home, the weight of the confrontation still hung over us. But there was a sense of accomplishment too. We had not only stood up for our relationship, but had begun shifting the family dynamics, hopefully for the better. Aunt Marie's unexpected support affirmed that not everyone saw things Linda's way, and that gave us hope. Months rolled by since our confrontation with Linda, and the change in our family dynamics was clear. We were on our way to the first family gathering at a local community center, a neutral ground where Linda had less control and everyone could feel more at ease. As Alex drove, I noticed the ease with which he now spoke about his mother. I never realized how stressed I was about Mom's behavior until we faced it head on. It's like I can breathe easier now." I smiled, looking out the window. "I feel the same. It's been a tough journey, but I'm proud of us for how we handled it." At the gathering, the atmosphere was noticeably lighter. Relatives mingled, laughing and chatting without the usual tension in the air. Linda arrived, her demeanor subdued, and for the first time, she greeted me without a hint of disdain. "Sally, I brought some of your favorite cookies," Linda said, a small olive branch that I accepted with a nod and a thank you. As we sat down for dinner, the conversation flowed more freely than it had in years. Alex's cousin Tom leaned over the table, whispering loudly enough for a few heads to turn. "You two really shook things up, huh? It's a nice change." Alex laughed, a genuine sound. "Yeah, it was about time. We all deserve to enjoy these gatherings, right?" Driving home, Alex reached over to squeeze my hand. "Today was good. I think we're moving in the right direction." "I agree," I replied, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "We've come a long way, not just with your mom, but with each other. Standing up for our marriage has made us stronger." Alex nodded, the streetlights flickering over his thoughtful face. "It's not going to be perfect overnight, but it's a start, a good one." As we pulled into our driveway, the feeling of a fresh start was undeniable. We had not only navigated a difficult family conflict, but had come out stronger on the other side. Future gatherings would likely still have their challenges, but with our newfound strength and understanding, we felt ready to face them together, with cautious but real optimism about what lay ahead. That's the end of our story. Now, I have a question for you all. How would you handle a situation where a family member consistently disrespects you in front of others? Would you confront them or choose peace over conflict? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story insightful, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Hey there, I'm Abigail Hawkins, but everyone calls me Abby. I'm 25, fresh out of college with a degree in agricultural science, and I'm eager to put my knowledge to work on our family farm. Hawkins Farm has been in our family for generations, and I've got big plans to bring it into the 21st century. Dad, look at these soil reports, I said, spreading out papers on the kitchen table. If we implement crop rotation and sustainable practices, we could boost our yield by 30%. Dad, Frank Hawkins to everyone else, just grunted, sipping his coffee. We've been doing things the same way for 50 years, Abby. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's Dad for you, stubborn as a mule and just as resistant to change. My sister Megan walked in with her husband, Brad, trailing behind. You two arguing about the farm again? She asked, rolling her eyes. Not arguing, I replied, just trying to discuss the future. Brad smirked. Good luck with that. Some of us have real jobs to get to. I bit my tongue. Megan and Brad lived in the city and only visited on holidays. They couldn't care less about the farm, but were always quick to criticize. Later that day, I vented to my best friend Sarah at her organic farm down the road. I just don't get it, Sarah. Why can't Dad see that we need to adapt? Sarah nodded sympathetically. Some people are just set in their ways, abs. But hey, look at what I've done here. Maybe seeing a successful modern farm will change his mind. I sighed, glancing around at Sarah's thriving fields. Maybe. I just wish he'd give me a chance to prove myself. The next day, at my part-time job at the local ag co-op, I was arranging a display of new organic fertilizers when my boss, Tom, approached me. Abby, that proposal you submitted for the community garden project is brilliant. Have you thought about implementing some of these ideas on your family's farm? I laughed bitterly. Oh, I've thought about it plenty. Getting Dad on board is the real challenge. Tom frowned. That's a shame. With your knowledge, Hawkins Farm could be leading the charge in sustainable agriculture around here. His words stuck with me as I drove home that evening. The sun was setting over our fields, painting everything gold. This land was in my blood, and I was determined to see it thrive. I found Dad in the barn, tinkering with the old tractor. Dad, we need to talk about the farm's future. He sighed, putting down his wrench. Abby, not this again. Yes, this again, Dad. The world is changing, and if we don't change with it, we'll be left behind. He hesitated. Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I'm thinking of retiring soon. My heart leaped. This was my chance. Really, Dad? That's great. I've got so many ideas for. He held up a hand, cutting me off. Now hold your horses. Retirement's a big step. We need to think carefully about who's going to take over. Something in his tone made me pause. What do you mean? I'm the one who's been working the land. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. We'll discuss it more at the family dinner next week. Just keep an open mind, okay? As he walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. Little did I know, my whole world was about to be turned upside down. The family dinner started like any other, with Mom's pot roast and Dad's bad jokes. But the tension in the air was thick as the gravy on our plates. So I've got an announcement to make, Dad said, clearing his throat. As you know, I'm planning to retire soon. I sat up straighter, heart pounding. This was it. I've been thinking long and hard about the future of this farm, he continued, and I've decided I'm handing it over to Brad. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I gasped. Brad's face split into a smug grin. I'm honored, Frank. I'll do my best to live up to the Hawkins name. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad, this has to be a joke. I'm the one with a degree in agriculture. I'm the one who's been working this land. Dad shook his head. Abby, running a farm is more than book learning. It takes a firm hand. A man's touch. A man's touch. I repeated, my voice rising. Are you kidding me? This is the 21st century, Dad. Megan piped up. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Abby. It's not like you can't still help out. I rounded on her. Help out? This was supposed to be my future, Megan. Now, Abby, Dad started, his tone patronizing. Let's be realistic. You'll get married someday, have kids. You can't be expected to run a farm on top of that. I saw red. So that's it. My dreams don't matter because I'm a woman. Don't twist my words, Dad snapped. I'm doing what's best for this farm. Best for the farm, I laughed bitterly. Brad doesn't know the first thing about farming. Brad leaned back, smirking. I'm a quick learner. Besides, how hard can it be? I stood up so fast my chair toppled over. This is bull. And you know it, Dad, you're making a huge mistake. Dad's face hardened. My decision is final, Abigail. You can either accept it or what? I challenged. Or you can leave, he said quietly. The room fell silent. Mom looked like she wanted to say something but kept quiet. I looked around at their faces, Dad's stubbornness, Brad's smugness, Megan's indifference. In that moment, I knew I couldn't stay. Fine, I said, my voice shaking. I'm out of here. I stormed upstairs and started throwing clothes into a bag, tears blurring my vision. I refused to let the tears fall. As I was leaving, I overheard Dad and Brad talking in the study. Something about loans and missed payments. I paused, listening more closely. Don't worry about it, Dad was saying. We'll figure something out. Just don't mention this to the women, all right? I felt sick. Not only was Dad handing over my birthright to Brad, but he was hiding financial troubles too. I drove straight to Sarah's place, spilling the whole story between sobs. That sexist old goat, Sarah exclaimed. Abby, I'm so sorry. As my tears dried, a new determination set in. I'm not giving up, I said firmly. I'm going to prove to them that I can run a farm better than any man. Sarah grinned. Now that's the Abby I know. What's the plan? I took a deep breath. First, I need more experience. I'm going to apply for that job at AgriCorp. And then, I'm going to build something that'll make Dad eat his words. As I drove away from Sarah's, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. I'm sorry, honey. Your father means well. I turned off my phone without replying. Sorry wasn't good enough. Not anymore. The next morning, I walked into AgriCorp with my head held high. Hi, I'm Abigail Hawkins, and I'm here to apply for the junior exec position. This was just the beginning. They had no idea what was coming. 6 months into my job at AgriCorp, I was driving past the family farm when I noticed something off. The corn looked stunted, yellowish. I pulled over, frowning. What in the world? I muttered, examining a sickly-looking stalk. Just then, old Mr. Jenkins from the neighboring farm walked up. Abby, haven't seen you in a while. You here to help Brad? Lord knows he needs it. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Mr. Jenkins shook his head. That boy's running this place into the ground, using some newfangled pesticides that are killing everything but the weeds. My blood boiled. I thanked Mr. Jenkins and drove straight to Sarah's. We've got to do something, I said. Brad's destroying the farm. Sarah nodded. I've heard rumors. But Abby, what can we do? An idea struck me. We help everyone else, make Hawkins Farm the worst in the county by comparison. And that's exactly what we did. Every weekend, I'd visit neighboring farms, offering free consultations. Word spread fast. Did you hear? Abby Hawkins increased the Thompsons' yield by 40%. The Wilsons' organic transition, all thanks to Abby. Meanwhile, Brad was floundering. I kept tabs through the grapevine, each piece of news worse than the last. One day, I overheard 2 farmhands at the local diner. I'm telling you, it ain't right. Brad's spraying stuff that ain't even legal no more. And the migrant workers, he's paying them peanuts, threatening deportation if they complain. I clenched my fists. This was worse than I thought. I started gathering evidence, photos of illegal pesticides, testimonies from workers, soil samples showing contamination. It was damning stuff. Then came the call from Mom. Abby, it's your father. He's had a heart attack. I rushed to the hospital, my stomach in knots. Dad looked small in the hospital bed, tubes everywhere. The stress, Mom explained tearfully. The farm's in trouble, and he won't let anyone help. I felt a pang of guilt. Had my actions contributed to this? As I left the hospital, lost in thought, I quite literally ran into someone. Oh, I'm so sorry, the woman said, helping me pick up my dropped files. Her eyes widened as she saw the contents. Wait a minute. Is this about Hawkins Farm? I eyed her suspiciously. Who's asking? She stuck out her hand. Alana Vasquez, investigative journalist. I've been looking into agricultural malpractices in the area, and it seems you've got quite the story. We talked for hours at a nearby cafe. Alana was sharp, passionate about exposing corruption in the industry. This is bigger than just your family's farm, Elena said, her voice steady. It's about workers' rights, environmental protection, and the future of farming in this region. I nodded slowly. I know, but it's still my family. If this gets out, it could ruin them. Elena leaned forward, her eyes serious. Sometimes doing the right thing means making tough choices. The question is, are you willing to make that choice? I stared into my coffee, my mind racing. On one hand, this was my chance to prove myself, to show Dad he was wrong about me. On the other, it could destroy everything our family had built over generations. I need some time to think, I said finally. Elena nodded. Of course, but don't take too long. Stories like this have a way of coming out, with or without us. As I drove home that night, the weight of the decision pressed down on me. What was I willing to sacrifice for justice, for the truth? I pulled over at the edge of our property, looking out over the fields I'd grown up in. The farm was sick, dying under Brad's mismanagement, but it was still home. What would you do, Mom? I whispered, thinking of her quiet strength in the face of Dad's stubbornness. The answer came to me slowly, but with certainty. I knew what I had to do. I pulled out my phone and dialed Elena's number. Hey, it's Abby. I'm in. Let's do this. Elena and I worked tirelessly on our expose. When it hit, it was like a bombshell. Unethical practices rot local farm from the inside dominated the headlines. The story went viral, sparking outrage and investigations. I watched from afar as Brad was led away in handcuffs, charged with multiple violations. Dad stood in the driveway, looking shell-shocked. One day, as I helped the Wilsons replant, Dad's truck pulled up. Abby, can we talk? He asked, his voice weary. I straightened, wiping my hands on my jeans. I'm busy, Dad. He nodded, eyes downcast. I know, I messed up, Abby. I was wrong about everything. Can you forgive me? For a moment, I wavered. Then I remembered the betrayal, the pain. No, Dad, I can't. You didn't just hurt me, you hurt this whole community. Some things can't be undone. He flinched but nodded. I understand. I'm proud of you, Abby, for what it's worth. As he drove away, I felt lighter. I was done seeking his approval. With community support and impressed investors, I started Hawkins' New Generation Farm, focused on sustainable, innovative practices. I had proven myself to the world. The Hawkins legacy lived on, not in Dad's old fields, but in the innovations I shared with the next generation. This was my victory, hard-won and sweet. And forgiveness. Some crops just aren't worth replanting. The story of Abby and her fight against injustice on the family farm has come to an end. Now, here's a question for you. Was Abby justified in exposing her family's unethical practices and refusing to forgive her father? Or should family loyalty come before personal ambition and moral principles? Is there a line where exposing a family's wrongdoing becomes the right thing to do, even if it destroys the family's legacy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could help others wrestling with family conflicts and ethical dilemmas. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.